The author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, broke the internet when he revealed how the rich keep the majority poor. While this might sound kind of strange or even absurd, the details of this speech will blow your mind. According to financial experts, a common mantra among the rich is, "Do not tell people what you know. Keep them poor." While this might not be said in these exact words, it is quite evident in their disposition. Kiyosaki had come about the knowledge when he asked his father, who was head of education at the time, why they were not taught about money in school. His father said, frankly, "The government doesn't let us teach that." Kiyosaki had been confused by the response, and he asked his father what the reason behind going to school was if it wasn't to earn money. His father said the educational system was designed to get people jobs, but not to actually become wealthy. When Kiyosaki's father saw that the response further confused him, he directed Kiyosaki to go meet the father of his best friend, who was a rich entrepreneur, to learn about ways to earn money. Ever the inquisitive child, Kiyosaki still asked his father why he had to go to a barely educated man to learn how to make money. If being an entrepreneur was difficult, why did an uneducated man succeed at being one? At this point, his father had no choice but to explain even more. As a government employee, Kiyosaki's father's knowledge about money and finances was very limited. All he knew was to collect his salary at the end of the month, deduct his taxes, pay the bills, and anticipate the next paycheck. His father further explained that things were different for his best friend's father. Since he was never certain where his next paycheck would come from, he was constantly in search of ways to grow a business and improve his finances. Interestingly, his father said, as his financial knowledge grew, so did his finances. Although still not convinced, Kiyosaki followed his dad's advice and decided to reach out to this entrepreneur. Usually, only a few wealthy people would share the exact tips behind their success. Instead, they would give general advice that nowadays you could easily find with a quick Google search. But the best-selling author was lucky to have found a mentor in his best friend's dad. So, let's briefly discuss some of the lessons Kiyosaki learned from him. First, never want a paycheck. The rich dad, as Kiyosaki famously referred to his best friend's dad, agreed to mentor him, but under the condition that no matter how much he puts him to work, he wouldn't pay him. This might sound cruel to a kid who's just trying to make some cash, but the rich dad had a solid explanation for it. According to Kiyosaki's mentor, once you start receiving a paycheck, you become an employee. And as an employee, you start to become dependent on this paycheck, and you only work towards getting the paycheck at the end of the month. However, entrepreneurs, the true masters of wealth, work for free because there's no fixed amount of profit for the work done. The rich dad's analogy is quite reasonable. Many people who are employees hardly ever find any other sources of income, but would rather build their lives around the paycheck they receive from their employer. Any extra effort towards a passive income would be considered a strain because they have grown completely dependent on their employers. In fact, it's also why they're afraid to take risks or even quit their jobs to focus on a business idea. But to become wealthy, one has to break out of whatever safe cocoon we have built for ourselves. And this was the advice Kiyosaki got from his mentor. Since he wouldn't pay him, Kiyosaki asked his mentor what other way he could earn money. And to his surprise, his mentor brought out the Monopoly game. And this leads to the second lesson. You could learn a whole lot about money from playing Monopoly. The basic principle of Monopoly is to win by buying, renting, and selling property. And to do that, you have to be quite intentional about what you buy and sell. Those who only save their paycheck won't win. But those who invest and risk losing some money have a higher chance of acquiring more properties in the long run. Kiyosaki's mentor also told him that if he could acquire 4 little green houses and 1 red hotel in Monopoly, he would learn about debt, taxes, the banking system, and many other important things that would help him with his finances in the real world. Kiyosaki further gave us an analogy of how his mentor used the 4 green houses and red hotels strategy in real life. Robert Kiyosaki had lived in Waikiki, Hawaii when he was younger, and so did his mentor. So, just like the game of Monopoly, this man had acquired small pieces of assets by buying out shop owners in a particular area over a long period of time. In the analogy, the greenhouses were the smaller assets he kept acquiring, and when he had gotten enough, he was able to acquire the red hotel, which was the larger property, over time. Through this rich dad's mentorship, Kiyosaki learned to grow a thick skin. He made mistakes, but kept getting back up and was never afraid to fail. And it was all because he was able to shake off the poor mindset he had been born into. Just like many people, Kiyosaki was born into a family with a poor mentality. Having a poor mentality doesn't necessarily stem from being poor, but stems from the lack of zeal to grow. This poor mentality is then passed from generation to generation, and only a few are lucky enough to break free. Once a child is born into a family where the goal is to go to school, earn a degree, and work for a prominent company, it would be hard for the child to break the cycle. So, they'd be comfortable earning paychecks because that's what their predecessors did. And so they pass it on to their children. If you've learned some lessons in this video, rest assured that there's more where that came from. Keep watching to find out what's in store for you. The third and maybe most important lesson Kiyosaki learned was how to shake off the poor mindset. A person with a poor mindset would always steer clear of anything risk-related because of the fear of losing the little he has. But the rich person won't be afraid to lose it all because he's constantly reminded that high risks translate to high rewards. If things do somehow go south, he knows that he'll learn from his mistakes. If an opportunity is presented to two people with these distinct mentalities, one would be afraid to take the next step due to the fear of failing, while the other would take a big leap after carefully searching for ways to make the most of the opportunity presented. Kiyosaki cited an incident that showed the difference between his dad and his best friend's dad. He had asked his dad for something expensive, and his dad had turned him away, saying, "How can I afford it? Am I made of money?" Also, his best friend's dad couldn't afford it either at the time, but rather than simply brushing it off, he decided to work towards getting the item. One very good source of motivation is to constantly work towards getting the very best life has to offer. Once you do that, there's a very good chance that you'll achieve financial success. But once you have the mindset that an item is too expensive or too good for you, you unconsciously close your mind towards that goal, which in turn makes it appear impossible. Kiyosaki also advises everyone to find their game. According to the financial expert, after learning the basic financial knowledge about investment, debts, and taxes, the next step is to know what your financial strengths and weaknesses are. For some, they might discover that they are very good at building profitable businesses, but never have the luck to pick the right stock. You might also discover that the real estate market genuinely feels interesting to you, but it takes time to find your game. You might have to try out several things before you can discover your forte. However, once you do, make sure you stick to it and build on it. Do you think these tips are enough to get you started on your financial journey? Take the right steps today, and your future self will thank you for it. Thanks for watching.